2 more minutes? Okay. Yes, I can fix it.
Shortcuts.
I can fix it. 58.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't
Give it 30 seconds. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Ms. Villalobos, would you like to do that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located at the front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. Okay, report out on closed session. The board met in closed session regarding, let's see. What do we have? Okay, down here. All right, the conference on labor negotiation agency, okay. And the conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation and public employee evaluation. Okay. Let's see, no action was taken. And let's see, for approval of the minutes for October 25th.
Excuse
Okay.
me, Mrs. Ball.
Yes.
Can we do roll call?
Oh. Yes, okay. Can we roll call?
Trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Trustee Bradall.
Here.
Trustee Shiakari. Trustee Levin.
Here.
Trustee Gould.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for October 25th? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. Any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed on the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve.
Okay, a second? All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, communications. This part of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. So LSEA?
Hello. Tonight we don't have a school speaking specifically. Instead, LSEA wanted to give you some updates from our members. We recently conducted a survey with our members and are very pleased that we have heard from 90% of them. One of the questions on our survey was a generic question that said, are there any questions, concerns, or ideas you would like to share with our negotiating team and LSEA? The responses we received from the teachers were predictable. They were things that we have been hearing over and over. They are the same things that LSEA brings to our meetings with the superintendent before each board meeting, and they are what our bargaining team continually brings up at negotiations. While we expect this information is being shared with the board, we want to reiterate and repeat these common themes tonight to ensure you have heard. So our 3 themes are combo classes, curriculum, and pay and benefits. As I'm reading these are directly from the teachers, so it sounds like first person, but it's coming from our teachers. So combo classes. I would like to lessen or eliminate combo classes. With 3 workshop models, Writer's Workshop, Reader's Workshop, and Bridges from the district, it is difficult to teach the combo classes effectively. Even with grade level teams supporting the combos, these students do not get an equitable learning experience. All students are impacted. Is the district looking at relocating families to different schools within the district to help each school have balanced number of grades and not random splits all over, causing distress to all? I am concerned about equity among teacher roles, especially with combo classes. Teachers who teach these classes need more support, either with prep time or an added professional in the classroom. Better yet, the district might consider eliminating combo classes altogether and redistribute students and teachers throughout the sites. Curriculum. Every year, we are either adding an entire curriculum or more expectations of one recently brought on. For example, Bridges, more writing units, Fontes and Pinnell, and probably soon social studies and science. Can we please have some time to truly learn what we are doing so we can do a good job with our students before giving us more? No more new curriculum for a while, please. Let us master what we have without more new curriculum to learn every year. Pay and benefits. Our salary is also very low compared to other nearby districts. We need to be more aligned since we are having to create our own curriculum, thus saving the district money since they don't purchase it. I would appreciate keeping our benefit structure the way it currently is. My family and I took a huge financial hit when the district decided to only provide fully paid Kaiser. Pacifica is one of the lowest paid districts in our county, and the fully paid benefits, non-Kaiser, were one of the reasons for taking a job here. I am not the only family who has medical issues and the need for quality health care with physicians whom we have had lifelong relationships with. I simply can't afford to work in Pacifica and pay more for my benefits without a huge increase in pay. My biggest concern is salary versus cost of living and not being able to afford to live here. I will be leaving the district due to not making enough money to pay rent. The surrounding districts pay extremely better than Pacifica, and I can't afford to keep working here. The benefits for my family mean the world to us. Our workload has grown exponentially while our salary has not. Our plates are too full while our pockets are too empty. We work our fingers to the bone but can't buy Band-Aids. And now they are wanting a longer, more complex, more time-consuming report card. Our schools perform well because we have great, hardworking, dedicated teachers, and our admin is one of the highest paid on the peninsula, yet we, the teachers in the classroom, are paid the poorest. So at our last LSEA meeting, we shared that we received all these results and they wanted us to make sure they were heard. So that's why today we chose to share some of these common themes. And if you have any questions or concerns, you know where to find us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, CSEA? Is there anyone waiting to address the board? Don't have any cards up here? No? Okay, correspondence?
I did receive correspondence, thank you. We received an email and it said, "Thank you. I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the excellent customer service I received while utilizing the Cabrillo School parking area playground on October 21st, 2017. I utilized it for overflow parking for a Pacifica Senior Services fundraiser due to construction at the Pacifica Community Center. Principal Stafford and the office staff at Cabrillo made it an easy and pleasant experience to utilize their school. The district office was very courteous in aiding my request and went through great efforts to simplify my request. As a longtime Pacifica resident, I was very impressed with the level of service provided by the Pacifica School District. Have a great day. Jim Lang, Recreation Manager." So thank you, Sherry.
Okay, Board Superintendent Communications? Okay.
I went to the Cabrillo Fair and enjoyed that very, very much. I got probably about 6 presents done for Christmas.
Wow.
Supporting the community. Went to the work study and also stopped by Ortega's book fair too.
Okay, I also went to Candyland, which was the carnival fair at Cabrillo. It was really fun and helped set up. I still don't know how much we made, but it was everybody worked hard and had a good time. Also went to the work study, one that was on the Odstad property. Maybe there were 2 since then. There were two. So once, anyway, learned more about that and we tried to grill the experts that came, asked them lots of questions. The other thing that I did was I went to the APAM meetings, which is the Association of Public Policy, and went through a lot of sessions on charter schools and higher education finance, but mostly kept it to charter schools to see what's going on there. And I can report that the best research out there is still finding that charter schools are not performing better than traditional schools, and virtual charters are a mess. They do much, much worse. So just wanted to lend the little wisdom that I learned there to the group. And that's about it.
I know I've been to all the work studies and to the wellness committee meeting, and we get a report out on that tonight, so I guess I don't need to say too much, but we did have some rich conversation about looking at the data, looking at the numbers, talking about why fitness levels are going down and what can be done about that, and so the wellness committee is on top of things about how to make things better for our students.
Yeah, I think I forgot. 2 nights ago, I went to the LCAP steering committee, and Will did a great job presenting, and we had a lot of good conversation there. And then we also had a work study on the well, maybe you're going to talk about that. I don't want to steal your thunder. Sorry, Elizabeth.
Go ahead. It might not be real short. Went to the work studies and the GeoBond meeting. Also went to the Boo Fest, which was a lot of fun up at Sunset Ridge. I had gone to meetings before to help prepare for it, but it was the first time I got to attend because it was a couple days before Halloween. And so that was well attended, a lot of kids everywhere, and a lot of fun. And then legislation day for the San Mateo County School Board Association that had Senator Jerry Hill and Kevin Mullen and Scott Wiener was there from San Francisco, and they sat with all of us and listened to the different issues with the schools and with the lack of funding and all of that coming up that we tell them every year or several times a year, but it was nice of them to come down to San Mateo and meet with everybody. So all the school boards were there.
So I've attended all those meetings, and we have, I think we are moving, the General Obligation Bond Committee, our Community Leadership Committee is really thoughtful about looking at what our needs are and coming to the board potentially to request placing a bond measure for the June election. We now have looked at the facilities list, which goes to approximately 100 million. And unfortunately, as we are hearing, there are just no funds for us to be able to repair and upgrade our buildings. And so we continue to do the work. We will be putting out some mailers to survey our community to see what's important to them. And reaching out to ensure that we're going down the right path and putting on a measure should the board choose in June. The other thing that I have been doing is I was able to attend a forum for the state superintendent candidates of public instruction. There will be 2 running, and at the forefront of the questions have been around how to provide appropriate curriculum and instructional materials for our school districts when our funding is not incommensurate with what we need to be able to provide and do. So it's very interesting conversations. They have similar and yet unique backgrounds, so I strongly recommend the community to do their due diligence in looking at the 2 candidates and selecting one who will be a positive influence to us in California. It's very sad to be one of the richest states in the nation, and yet 48th as far as education funding. So something needs to be done, and hopefully as we continue the mantra with our legislators and maybe through the election mode, we'll be able to make some changes. Thank you.
Okay. And I think we have a presentation from the Boys and Girls Club. of North San Mateo County.
Yes, so this is my opportunity. I had I think Aubrey, you've been with them now, is this your second year?
It's
Third?
just less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet Aubrey, the new Chief Executive Officer for the Boys and Girls Club, I think last year. And Pacifica enjoys having a great relationship with the Boys and Girls Club, and Aubrey tonight is going to present to you some things that are happening in Pacifica and to get questions from you, so you choose.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to be here and share with you a little bit about the Boys and Girls Club in North San Mateo County, and in particular, what we're doing in Pacifica. So I want to give you just a brief overview of who we are and sort of a glimpse into some of our focus moving forward, and also hopefully be able to show you a little video, and then would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that you might have. I appreciate the introduction, Superintendent Dr. Tukloff. I appreciate that a great deal, and ability to work with you and to partner with our schools, and in particular having Principal Stafford, Principal Stiles, and Principal Little here, because it couldn't be a better sort of intersection of examples of some of the great partnerships that we continue to benefit from in the community. So I just want to say that anything that we do, it's because we stand shoulder to shoulder with great administrators like the three of them here today. And so hopefully I read the script the way you guys wrote it. I had it here. I want to make sure. Really? Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It was a cut-paste error. Sorry. Boys and Girls Club, for you guys, that it's known by different names. Here it's known as the Pacifica Boys and Girls Club, or Boys and Girls Club of Pacifica. Just a brief history. 1953 was sort of the beginning of its roots, and in 1965 is when we founded a club here in Pacifica. And then when the Boys and Girls Club and Society as a movement took off the sexism hat, we began to call ourselves the Boys and Girls Clubs in 1980. And there was a merger between those two organizations, which is now today the Boys and Girls Club of North San Mateo County. So we cover primarily South San Francisco and Pacifica as our major hubs. And in the year 2000, we had the pleasure of starting our program right on site on campus at the Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School. And so really pleased about that, and we'll hear more about that. I won't read over everything, but wanted you to see our mission statement is really just to inspire and enable young people to realize their full potential and contribute to their communities. And you'll see the vision that we have there. And sort of what's threaded through all of that is a holistic approach to working with our young people and really building the whole person with their social and emotional development. So it's not just, we have some great organizations that focus on sort of athletics, and then some focus on other aspects. We try to offer a spectrum of programs and activities that can touch and ignite interest in every child that walks through the door. Part of our promise to ourselves is to ensure that every young person that walks in the door has an opportunity and a chance to be successful, not only as a Boys and Girls Club member, but as a student and eventually in life. So grade level by grade level, we try to walk with them during that path to open doors to great futures for them. And like I said, we don't do it alone. A lot of the partners along that journey are in this room with us. So total enrollment plus 2,700 in total. We see about 325 or so young people a day, a little bit more than that. We have two sites, as you heard. Ingrid B. Lacey is one of them in Pacifica, and the other one is our Yosemite Clubhouses, which is more in the back of the valley. And that's the breakout of our population, so some organizational demographics there. Again, just another sort of visual on the geographic footprint in Pacifica. And again, just more specific breakout into those two club sites. It's interesting that at IBL we see more than half of the students that are at IBL. It's almost a split And then when you go to our Pacifica back of the valley, we have almost 2/3 to 1/3 boys to girls. But I'll give you a minute to digest that breakout there. So it shows sort of the breadth of the different types of students and families that we hope to touch. And so we have 3 basic components that sort of core through all of our programs. One area is academic success and career development, and so this is how it manifests itself in some way, shape, or form through our programs. And focusing a lot more on the STEAM and technology work, and making sure that we incorporate that into the programs. The old perception of the Boys and Girls Club, right, is the swim and gym, and you go and you do woodwork and you hang out, and so we've evolved a lot over time. So part of the challenge of being a legacy organization is always to refresh people on who you are and what you do and try to remain as relevant as you can. So that's sort of a sampling of what we do. The other part of it is healthy lifestyles and being physically fit. And part of that breaks out into a triple play program, which is a national program by Boys and Girls Club of America. It's evidence-based, research-based program that really focuses on mind, body, and soul. Again, it ties back to that holistic approach to working with our young people. And as you can see here, we're fortunate enough through our relationship with IBL and the North County Recreation League to be able to run the programs through our fabulous Bill Lepeltek, who runs our programs there. It's almost like when you come over the highway and you're coming into Pacifica and you see all the logos up there with Boys and Girl Scouts. It's almost like you should have Bill's picture right there. And then the third element of that important triangle is a good character development and citizenship, is giving our young people the opportunity to get out of the club and be good citizens in the world and do community service and begin to develop their college-going identity. And then we also have a Youth of the Year, Youth of the Month program that we do. The Big Little Buddies program and leadership training, it's primarily our middle schoolers and some of our high schoolers that work with our elementary age members to sort of complete that circle of support. One of the things we're pleased about most recently is increasing our technology focus on IBL. It really came to us through Principal Little around the makerspace and really approached us in true spirit of thought partnership to see how we can work together to collaborate around that. So really grateful for the presentation of that opportunity for us. And what you see here are a couple of pictures of some of that work in action. We also have a relationship with Dash and Dot, which is the robotics program. And so it's almost like you're tricking kids into robotics without them knowing it, and they're having fun doing it. And so that's what that top photo represents. And the bottom one is in the makerspace and the presentation at IBL for makerspace. Again, it shows you about that increasing focus on STEAM and STEM activities. Won't go through all of this, just sort of, we do survey our members and we do a lot of data-driven programming and always trying to get feedback from our membership to see how we can really refine our programs. And so this is some of the feedback that we received. And we do this annually. Just a few quotes about the impact. And then, I don't know, that's just an amazingly thoughtful quote right there. Punctuated correctly, too. And so, one of the things that I'm doing coming in less than 2 years is looking how you can sort of refine and refresh and review relationships and who we are and what we're doing. What we want to focus on in the future is really, how do we scale and impact our program? How can we serve more young people throughout Pacifica? And we know that for every member that walks in the door, there's probably 10 plus out there that we've yet to reach. And so how do we do a better job of really scaling our program and sustaining that quality level of programming? And we know that we've been really fortunate again to work with Dr. Tukaloff on exploring some of those opportunities. And we really want to be a resource to the district to see how we might be able to address existing and future needs and really work complementary with some of the great programs that are already existing in the schools. And how can we collaborate and partner to help sort of extend the reach, our collective reach. One of the things that we are looking at is potentially the use of district bands to help increase our ability to serve more students at our current schools. And then we're also piloting a high school program. We know that there's a big need in a lot of communities, but in particular in Pacifica, for reaching out to our high schoolers and getting our older teens positively engaged in some sort of programming, or at least to be able to be an option for that type of engagement. And then just really strengthening the collaboration. It's been really exciting for me to learn more about the unique community of Pacifica and some of the people that are on the ground that have been doing great work for a number of years and really focusing on strengthening our collaboration with PBNR. Had some great meetings with them. We're looking forward to bringing our programs closer together, and Pacifica Resource Center around serving our families and our kids that have food insecurities. And we're going to be reaching out to the Pacifica Collaborative as well too. I think I'm going to be going to next month's meeting. I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to be hosting a few community events in Pacifica here, and I'll share more information down the road. But we're going to be hosting a community health fair on January 19th. So it'll be really an opportunity for the entire community to come out and come to the club and walk away with some viable health resources and flu shots and some other things that would be helpful. So you don't have to be a member of the club to participate in this, and it's just our way of just being the best community partner that we can be. And just for your information, local contacts on the ground, Denise Morris is the area director who oversees both of the clubs for our Pacifica footprint. And then Frank Delgado is actually our site lead at IBL and was a former club kid and a former student at IBL, if I'm not mistaken. And so just that ability to sort of keep it in full circle is great. And so it just shows you sort of the impact that you have and that people are ability to give back. So that's who we are. That's what we're looking forward to moving forward, and hopefully with the partnership or support with everybody in this room and the community, that we can help make Pacifica a better place to be. And that's it. I think I have a video. I don't know how
I'm going to pull up the video for you.
Oh, great. And you'll probably recognize the folks in the room. This is totally coincidental.
Yeah.
We did not plan this at all. Yeah, not planned at all. It was FedEx brought to my office, but it was not planned.
Hi, I'm Debbie Skiles, principal at Ortega School. I just wanted to say how excited we are to be part of the Pacifica Boys and Girls Club. We have approximately 75 students who attend the club regularly.
I'm Dan Little, I'm the principal here at Lacey Middle School in Pacifica. And I've had the opportunity to work with the Boys and Girls Club for 3 years now. And the relationship that we have with them is absolutely outstanding. They provide a wonderful service for our students in our community. They give them a safe place to meet between 3 and 6, and they provide a number of different outlets for kids.
Hi, I'm Tom Stafford from Cabrillo Elementary School. And I just want to say that I support the Boys and Girls Club 100%. And we're also very excited about their transportation, where they bring our students to and from the Boys and Girls Club safely and on time on a daily basis.
The sports program is a huge component of what my kids do after school here, and they provide ample opportunity for them to participate in our community. They also give them an opportunity to do homework and to engage in other activities until they get picked up and go home.
We have a lot of our kids completing their homework, and that's a wonderful thing to hear. So please support your Boys and Girls Club. It's well worth it. Thank you, Boys and Girls Club, for being part of our community and allowing us to be part of yours.
Thank you. I'm sensitive to time, so I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments if you have any.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll give you back your copy. Don't worry. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you do. Okay, district goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals is listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website at www.pacificasd.org under District Information Board of Trustees. Okay, so certificated and classified staff. Wendy?
So I'm pleased to bring forward to you the names of employees who have moved to a permanent status. Once a year, we move certificated teachers from probationary to tenure status. And so we have them listed here at the bottom. Ann Henry, Ashley Carter, Lauren Fong, Leslie Hazelwood, Lisa Klewicki, Tiffany Kwok, Kevin McCarthy, Rosalind Munger, Christy Novak, Jessica Paul, and Stacy Russell have all received tenure within our district. We also have classified staff who reach permanent status after a probationary period. And so tonight, I wanted to bring forward just the employees who received permanent status at this time, but all throughout the year, we may have more classified staff. So during open communications when I will share those informations. But now we have Marissa Schaff, Yalud Gutierrez, Marie Vargas, and James Crenshaw who have retained permanent status. So I congratulate them all, and we're very fortunate to have the retention in our school district, and we hope to do that as we continue to work on our odd staff workforce housing. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. And 11B, the single plan for student achievement, goals number 1 and 2. Will?
Okay, this is it. Alright, okay, let me pull it up here for a second. Give me a second to pull it up, so that I already have it pulled up. Alright, so I present tonight, to you today, a recommendation for board approval on the single plans for student achievement for Cabrillo, Inkerby Lacey, Ocean Shore, Ortega, Sunset Ridge, and Valamar. I did appreciate the opportunity for the schools to present their SIPSAs at the work study on November 1st and gain feedback from the trustees. Some major points of feedback included referencing PD around curriculum, both in English language arts and math, and checking to see if there was student voice as part of the student council specifically for schools in 6 through 8, and clarifying some language within some of the actions. The SIPSAs were edited accordingly and based on that feedback, and so the SIPSAs I presented to you tonight for approval reflect those edits.
Okay. Is there any discussion on SIPSA plans?
So will these will be posted on the website after they've been finalized?
Yes.
Okay, we had the workshop the other night, so
talked
we got our question, we got our talk out the other night.
They're here tonight.
You don't have Kathy to have a list of questions for you. Kathy's not here with her list of questions for you, so you.
Wait, I got some Post-its she gave me.
I just want to comment how we just so appreciate the principals taking ownership of the SIPSAs. It's really the plan for their particular school, and it's really reflective of supporting the LCAP and making sure that we are successful in our goals. And so we really appreciate all of your hard work in getting that accomplished for us.
We do have a request to address the board on this subject for Sue Beckmeyer.
Hello. So I wanted to address the board, but I kind of had a feeling there would be a few people in the audience that would perhaps hear these words. And I wanted to say thank you very much for the reference to libraries in our SIPSs. I think there's virtually no aspect of our schools that isn't supported by our libraries. And I think some of our entries on those SIPSs, which I read page by page, were more effusive than others, but in all cases, I think there was some reference to libraries, and I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the board's support of our library programs. I realize we're in a budget cycle that doesn't allow for materials, but that we have our positions supported through parcel tax is wonderful, and I think we're doing some really great things in the libraries, so thank you.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, have a motion to approve the SIPSA?
Motion to approve.
Yes, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
Okay. So 11C, the local control accountability plan from Will. Lucy? Hold our audience a chance to read. Yeah. Will?
Okay, so tonight, I wanted to share with you the local control accountability plan, specifically about our local indicators report. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background or a little bit of context, the LCFF evaluation rubric, which is the California dashboard, has 10 indicators to measure performance. 6 of those indicators are state indicators and 4 of them are local indicators. Of the 6 that are state indicators, there are 4 that pertain to a K-8 district or Pacifica school district in particular. And of the 4 local indicators, we report on all 4 of these local indicators, them being under priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and priority 6. So our priority 1, a school accountability report card, is the tool we use for measurement. Our priorities 3 and 6, we use a panorama survey as the tool for measurement. And our priority 2, we use a self-assessment survey, which is part of the LCAP process that we go through that. The state performance levels are, as you might know, are the highest is being in the blue and the lowest is being in the red. We use that color system to show performance there. For our local indicators or local performance, it's mostly met, not met, or not met for 2 years. So in our local indicators, measuring progress, again, our district is rated on whether or not we report the results. So it's just on the idea of reporting the results. It's not necessarily on the results themselves. And again, it's met, not met, or not met for 2 years. Within each of the goals, we have local indicator metrics. In goal 1, it's the percentage of teachers responding at a 4 or 5 level on the survey regarding access to instructional materials. And then in goal 3, we have the student connectedness and safety, which comes from the survey, and the parent decision-making and participation. On the actual dashboard, or on the actual California dashboard, it's on the lower part of the first page you see on the dashboard. It includes those local indicators, and those are the 4. As they are, by December 1st, which they've already been submitted, but by December 1st, we have to put in for public viewing if we've met or not met those local indicators. And as you can tell, we show them as all being met.
Which just means that we reported them.
Just re-reported them, yes. So the first priority, basic service of these are of the local indicators. Again, it's appropriately assigning teachers, curriculum alignment, instruction material, and safe and clean functional school. And we have high percentages in our 99% of our teachers are credentialed, are properly credentialed. 100% of our students have access, and all schools, based off the FIT report, are in good repair. So we met it. The priority 2, the implementation of academic standards. And this is a survey that the survey that the teachers fill out that we give to measure this. And based off the responses of the teachers from the survey that we gave in April of 2017, in ELA, ELD, and math, we were either close to full implementation or at full implementation. And in science and history, as you can imagine, we're at the beginning development of that. So that priority was met. And in parent engagement, there was a parent survey. We did give a parent survey in the spring of 2017, and 37% of our families responded favorably to the parent engagement-related questions. And just to kind of compare that to a national norm, because this same survey was given out nationally, we were near the 80th percentile in that. So you're kind of looking at the 37%, but you're also looking at it's at the 80th percentile, so you can kind of gather how the questions were formed.
Do we have comparisons within the county of other districts?
We don't at this time. I could, but at this time we don't.
Okay.
That's a good question. And then priority 6, the school climate, we did recently give out a student survey. It was through Panorama, and through our positive response percentages we gave there was questions related to connectedness to school, and then there was questions related to school safety. Our 3rd through 5th grade, as you can see, scored high percentages in both, and our 6th through 8th grade scored high percentages also in both. So those are our local indicators. I've officially reported it out to you. Have any questions?
Sorry, I jumped the gun there, I guess. I have one more question. I mean, the surveys that we put out there, the family survey, we use a particular survey. I suspect maybe other districts use different surveys. So, or is it?
Yeah. So the survey that we've given out this year, the student one we've already done, and we're going to do a staff one and a parent survey. They will be a survey that's been given to thousands of schools and school districts across the nation. Very similar questions. There are some questions that we add on so that it's connected to our LCAP, has a direct connection to our LCAP, but for the most part, those surveys will be consistent. They'll be literally the same questions that are asked. So we get a national norm aside from just the raw data of.
Yeah, I was looking at more of a local norm, right?
So Jefferson Elementary School District uses Panorama, so they give out the same survey.
Great.
Bayshore, I believe, is doing it. There's a number of districts within our county, not all of them, but there's a number of different districts within our county and within California that utilize the Panorama
Great.
Survey.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Will. 11D, wellness update, school climate and health. Ray Avila.
Okay, so as the board knows, we do have a wellness plan, and as Andrea mentioned earlier, our wellness committee did meet recently. Our wellness plan now includes information on how our district promotes a positive school climate, along with guidelines for nutrition and physical fitness. Tonight, though, I will focus on our LCAP metrics for 3 specific areas: suspension expulsion rates, chronic absenteeism rates, and physical fitness rates. So that's the reason we have the title Wellness Update, and we're focusing on school climate and health. Okay. There we go. Okay, so our goal for tonight is to provide the board specific data points, specifically again in the area of suspension expulsions and chronic absenteeism, along with results from our recent physical fitness findings. Excuse me. So we'll start with suspensions and expulsions. This is aligns with LCAP Goal 3. And we're looking at a 3-year trend. And I'm very happy to say you can see with our suspensions and expulsions, we have seen a decline in those rates. Our expulsion rate has remained at 0 for the last 3 years. So when you look at rates of student per grade, you can see an inconsistency in certain grade cohorts. So I'm going to hone in on 6th grade. And look in 14-15, there was a 7% suspension rate. But you follow them the next year, the orange bar, when they were 7th graders, and they went up to 9.5%. But then the 3rd year, 16-17, they dropped back down again to 8.1. So when you track a cohort of a grade level, we don't necessarily see the same rate every year. They go up and down. Okay. When we break down our data by subgroup for race and ethnicity, what I'd like to point out is if the orange bar is higher than the blue bar, it means that we're suspending that subgroup at a higher rate than its enrollment rate. And I specifically honed in on our Hispanic Latino subgroup because that's the case for this subgroup. If the green bar tries to show us how many of each subgroup are being suspended. You know, what's the percentage rate of that subgroup being suspended? The lower the green bar, the better. Okay. So we can see over here with 2 or more, this is the pattern we'd like to see. The enrollment rate is 16.9. The suspension rate is lower than the enrollment rate, and the students of that subgroup being suspended is also lower. That's the pattern we want to see. This is the pattern that we don't want to see. Okay.
Ray, can I weigh in here for 2 seconds? I'm not sure I agree with that last statement. I mean, if you compare the blue bars and the orange bars, that gives you a sense of disproportionality, right? So you honed in on the Hispanics, so they're overrepresented in terms of the number, the incidence of suspension compared to the percentage of the population they make up. Even more so is the African American. That's a really stark, right? So while they only make up 1.3% of our student population, they account for 11.8% of the suspensions, right? So this is kind of a zero-sum game. So while we see the 2 or more or the whites, they're disproportionately underrepresented in terms of suspensions, right? In other words, whites make up 40.7% of the student population, but they only make up 36.8%, right? Really what we want there, I mean, if there's underrepresentation in one place, it means there's overrepresentation in another place. Mm-hmm. So that last statement that you made, I think what we really want is those two things to be equal, to be perfectly proportionate. Because it is a zero-sum game, and the only reason while we may see in some areas for 2 or more white that they're underrepresented, that's a great thing for those groups, but that means some other groups are overrepresented, and that's probably not good. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. But this is great analysis. I mean, this is exactly what we should be looking at. Thanks for pulling this together.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that too. Next slide breaks down 3 subgroups: our students with disabilities, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and English language learner students. And again, same pattern that we were pointing out earlier, the enrollment rate percentage, then the percentage of students that are being suspended, and the percentage of students suspended within that race. Okay. And what are the top reasons for students being suspended? This chart shows that the blue is for the out-of-school suspensions, with the orange being what we call in-house, or when the child remains in school for a suspension. So after looking at the data, what did we find? We have, the good news is we've met our metrics in terms of LCAP, with suspensions decreasing and remaining at 0 expulsions. But we do need to hone in on that. We have some reasons for out-of-school suspensions that are our top reasons. That gives us a deeper look at what's causing a student to be suspended and sent out of school, and the same with in-school, profanity being the top reason a child gets suspended but then they remain in school. We talked about the inconsistency with the grade level cohort pattern, and then the disparity between the subgroups. And we did note that which subgroups have a higher rate of suspension. So we need to discuss and take a look at what is our response to these findings. What are our next steps? What are we going to do within our district? Well, we have a learning support team made up of our vice principals, assistant principals, and Jennifer Gray, she's our administrator for behavioral services. And we meet monthly and we review the data, and we are fortunate that we're a small enough district with some of these subgroups are really able to have enough time to specifically look each time we meet at who's falling into these certain subgroups that are out of disproportionality. And we discuss what are the actions that are working at each school site that is decreasing the suspension rate for those students. We're always striving to strengthen the positive school climate on each campus. There's a variety of activities going on, as well as professional development. And we look at the individual supports that we're providing for students. Again, that goes back to discussions, for example, with the learning support team, as well as on-site school climate committees. So now let's move into chronically absent. Again, this falls in line with LCAP Goal 3. And chronically absent are students that are absent 10% or more of a given time frame. So we can start off with by grade level, and this is a comparison between 15-16 and 16-17. And I would like you to note, back in 15-16, transitional kindergartners were our highest rate of students that were chronically absent, 10% or more. Follow this grade level cohort and look at where they dropped down to when they became kindergartners the next year. A dramatic decrease. And there was a definite focus put on that grade level at 15-16 to 16-17, and I can guarantee you that's the result of the focus. Okay? And then you can see how the other grade levels differ. If you look at 7th grade here, they were also high in 15-16. When they became 8th graders, they dropped down as well. So again, breaking it down by ethnicity and race, and the same thing that we noted with suspensions. The way the bar graph shows, you have your area of the percentage rate for enrollment, the percentage rate of suspension, and then the percentage rate of that ethnic subgroup that's being chronically absent, in this case chronically absent. And again, the same 3 subgroups for English learners, special education, and socioeconomic status. And what are our findings? Well, very similar to suspensions. We have higher rates of chronically absent students with similar subgroups, Hispanic, Latino, African American, and students with disabilities and so forth. And then we want to note that chronic absenteeism is highest in TK, kindergarten, and 6th grade, still. So what are we doing with this data? We have our learning support team working, representatives from each site, targeting the students and discussing what actions work best to reduce chronic absenteeism with those subgroups. We also have a variety of current actions that we want to continue. One of the strongest is research-based, using attendance cards, sending them home for targeted groups of kids that are chronically absent. We're very fortunate to have a social worker allocated to our school district, and we have a bilingual social worker housed at Sunset Ridge, and she works very close with targeted families. And then this year we implemented a process to respond to San Mateo County alerts when we have those unforeseen weather conditions, and how we communicate to our school sites so we know what they're doing in response to the alerts, and then we can communicate in case there is interest from outside parties. And finally, health. Let's look at physical fitness. Now this aligns with LCAP goal 2. And you'll notice in physical fitness, we test our 5th graders and our 7th graders every year with California physical fitness tests. You will notice a decline for the past 3 years. I do want to make mention to the board that if you look at these first 2 years, 14-15 and 15-16, the criteria is based on students meeting 4 out of the 6 physical fitness standards, okay? For 16-17 year, the CDE, California Department of Ed, revised that criteria, and now a student must meet 5 out of 6 of the physical fitness standards. Now, when this slide was created and this data was produced, we were still with the notion it was 4 out of 6 for all 3 years. We do have a little bit different data for the 16-17 year because of the 5 out of 6 criteria. It doesn't dramatically change though. We still are seeing a decline. That's the most important thing for us to note and for us to focus on. So you can see over the years what out of those 6 physical fitness areas, how the students are performing. This is for 5th grade. And those areas include aerobic capacity, body composition, and so forth, all the way to flexibility. And in some areas, there might be a decline, so that's definitely a target area to focus on throughout the year with, in physical education. And in some areas, we've seen a little bit of a growth at the, for 16-17. This is for 7th grade, same physical fitness areas. And then this graph shows in 16-17 where each grade level performed at. If you look at the blue bar, that's 5th grade, orange bar is 7th grade, and for those grade levels, for 5th grade, the average was 53% rate, 7th grade was 56% rate, and with our subgroup by ethnicity race, you can see how that subgroup came in comparison to the grade level average rate. So what did we find from our physical fitness data? That scores have decreased over the past 3 years. That we do have area scores in aerobic capacity, body composition, and trunk strength that have specifically decreased. So that's important data for our PE teachers to know, and we will be sharing that with them. And then what areas have increased? abdominal strength and upper body strength for both grade levels. And then our subgroups that have decreased the most compared to all the ethnicities. And that goes with the chart I showed you back prior. What are we going to do about it? Again, the learning support team, administration on campus working with our PE teachers, reflecting on like what's the instructional practices that have led up to the physical fitness test. How can we strengthen those PE lessons? And what areas of need do we have to focus on? Of course, monitoring student progress, and then the actual test. And Andrea will remember this, last week we had a real good discussion with the Wellness Committee about how the test is implemented and do we need to review that process. When is it given? Where is it given? As you can see, there are 6 physical fitness areas and how it's implemented. So we may see some revisions to how the test is facilitated at the end of the year. So in conclusion, and thank you for your patience, we met our LCAP Goal 3 metrics. As I mentioned earlier, our district will definitely have a focus on physical fitness this year, working alongside of our PE team of teachers. And then we will build upon wellness district-wide, and that includes social emotional learning. I didn't go specific into that this evening because in January I will be presenting to the board on integrated services, and that will include a social emotional piece, okay? Any questions? Laverne.
Can we go back to the slide with the suspensions with the African American population?
Yes.
This slide, I mean, I've discussed this before, concerns me. It's been an ongoing issue since my kids were in elementary school. And I actually, when I ran on the suspension rates, and since I've been on the board, nothing has really progressed in that area. And so I'm really concerned. I'm concerned with the statistics and of which schools and which specifically are higher in the suspension rates of African Americans. And I understand that there's the confidentiality of the student, but I feel that if we don't address each school and have a plan for those assistant principals who are handling those situations, that we'll just continue to see this every time, every year that it's updated. So I also wanted to make a note about the, in your slides, it didn't mention defiance being suspended. There was not one word about defiance. And so I'm wondering if profanity is something that would fall under defiance, and if we could look at a work study or some more research on what is defiance, and if we can look at perhaps not suspending for defiance. And we've done that with our lower grades, you know, at the state level where we're not
Right.
supposed to do that.
K through 3.
Yeah, and I know that we have ed code, but there are districts out there who are not suspending for defiance in the upper grades. And I want to know, how do they do that? How do they get around the ed code? And how do they get around the confidentiality of each school site? So my concern is that there might be 1 or 2 school sites that are suspending African Americans at a much higher rate than others. But as a board member, I don't have that information. And so I feel like there's nothing I can really do about it. And so how do we get around that aspect also? Because African Americans are a very low population. But when I look at these, you know, I can't tell which schools, I can't tell anything from them, except that we continue to do this. And we've specifically, this board has okayed and approved the assistant principals to help in these kind of areas. And so I want to know why that's not being affected with those assistant principals, like at IBL or just across the board. So is there anything we can do about that?
Well, I can tell you that the vice principals and assistant principals are able to identify each student by name, by grade, and create a plan for each of those students in that subgroup of ethnicity. I can tell you that there is a plan for every single one of those students. Now granted, this is last year's data. A couple of them may have moved on because of moving on to high school level. But because it is a targeted group for our administration, they build a plan and they do look at alternatives to suspension. Restorative practice is huge. It's working rather well at IBL, and it has helped in the decrease of having to result in a suspension. It's a definite alternative. And it has worked with students that are in that subgroup.
So where do we see that though?
So something that we might want to remember, a few years ago, we realized that there was a discrepancy or what I consider an opportunity gap that we have. So we did some strong work. One of them was to bring on the the vice principals, and unfortunately the dashboard last year was old data, and so we didn't get to see what we thought was the progress we have made in this disproportionality issue. So I believe this year you will, with the new data, and we're previewing the information right now, and it will go live, I think, December 1st?
December 1st.
Something like that, to the public. And not only will you see district data, but you can go to school by school, suspensions being one of them, and the ethnic groups that are represented in those schools. So you will probably see, I don't know if it will be done for African American population per se, because I think we have 25 students in our district. So you might not see the schools per se, because it has to be more than 15 or something to be calculated, because it would not be strong data.
30 to get a color, 11 to get a raw score.
Yeah, and so we might see it, and so
The
we have to
raw
wait
score,
and
yeah.
see, but that's where you can look at the dashboard, and I believe we're looking at the data right now to make sure that it's clean data. But for our African American population, they say 30, but I think there's 28, we had 28, and we still showed a color. So I think it's gonna be close range, but we'll be able to see that then, and I think indications are that we have done some great progress, and I think you'll be really pleased.
So that's what I wanted to comment. I mean, if you go to the first slide, I wanted to commend all of your work on reducing the suspension rate. That's not to say that there are points that deserve more attention, which is African Americans. However, I don't have enough information here because you only show 1 year broken out by ethnicity. So if you look at this, we've got a decline of overall suspension rates, right, from 111 down to 52. So that's, a drop of 50%, more or less, right? More than 50%. So what we really need to see, if we look at the 2 slides later, right, is did the African American subgroup enjoy that proportionate decrease with that? And we can't tell that. So there might have been some progress. I'm not saying that this still isn't a problem. This is still a very apparent, glaring problem. But let's hope that they have made commensurate progress with the overall trend. And that's what I would be looking for. So if we had even 15-16, this slide for 15-16, we could see what's going on. Don't get me wrong, well, trustee Villalobos. But that 9.3% is also a really, I mean, not only the disproportionality, the difference between the blue and the orange, but just that green bar. I mean, that's saying that almost 1 out of every 10, you know, it's still small numbers if we only have 30, right? You know, but still, as a percentage, 1 out of every 10 are being suspended, and that's not a great number if you compare it to you know the 1% that we see or 2% that we see elsewhere. So I have a couple more questions for you. Nothing huge. On suspensions, when a student is suspended, does that also count as absence?
No.
It doesn't. Okay. So
It's an absence, but it's excused.
It's excused, yeah. So it wouldn't go towards the chronic absence.
Correct.
Which is a little troubling. I mean, I understand it's beyond you. This is a state role, right? How this is defined?
It's what we do within San Mateo County.
Oh, San Mateo County, okay. So anyway, that was just kind of a nitpicky question. The other thing is on well, here's a really stupid question, but you'll understand it coming from me. What's the difference between abdominal strength and trunk strength? I have no idea.
I have to get back to you on that.
Okay, and then
obviously that's not my area of expertise.
Okay.
There's two different. Because I used to give this test.
Oh, okay, sure.
There's two different things that you do. One's for abdominal and one's for trunk. And the abdominal one is the one where you slide your hands and reach. So that's more of the abdominal.
Okay.
And the trunk straight is being able to stand straight up from a squat position.
Okay.
So they're two different types of tests. So, I mean, the trunk and the abdominal are in the same area. So you would think that they would be, but there's two different ways, there's two different exercises that they measure for that.
Yeah. I mean, you think that they would be kind of positively correlated.
Yeah.
Right? But the patterns over the years are different.
Yeah.
So it's just very strange. But that's all right. That was just a nitpicky question because I had no clue. What is going on with the Filipinos on that mean? I mean, it's just really glaring. So I'm on slide. I don't have the numbers. It's next to your findings. It's right before your findings.
This is for physical fitness.
Yes, it is. So if you keep going, it's the one with the dashed line for the means.
So what this is showing is that if you are a 5th grader and you are in the Filipino ethnic group, you're performing at a lower rate than your peers.
That's what it appears, and it seems significantly so. So when I see stuff like this, I'm wondering if the data is correct, and I'm also wondering if this is only based on like students that are not tested are not counted as zeros, right? I mean, this just seems like a pretty large jump off of the, right? It's 20%. There's nothing, there's nothing close to this. So do you guys feel, I'm just wondering if the data is correct and what's going on with that subgroup then? Because it's just interesting.
Right.
You know, and.
Well, then, I mean, we could hone in on our Hispanic group performed
and they're way above
their peers.
It would also be, you might want to look at also with Hispanic, the sample number of that. Because if you have one person, say you have a small sample and then one person, it drops the percentage down. Each person that maybe doesn't reach the 5 out of 6.
Yeah, but our Hispanic, our Filipino are larger.
Are large.
Yeah.
In 5th grade?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Well, that was mine.
I'm pretty sure, because they're a larger ethnic group.
And it was just really interesting to look at. I mean, that
I
kind of
know.
took me back. I'm like, wow, that's a little strange.
Those are the things that keep us up at night. Like, what happened?
I mean, of course, I'm focusing on the battle. I should have talked about the Hispanics as well, and I'd probably look at that like,
That's
you guys really
great.
did that, you know, that much higher. They've got no problems on the physical fitness. The last thing that I'm going to say, I know I'm long-winded, so forgive me, but the last thing I'm going to say is, you know, PE at school can only go so far here, and I'm wondering what we're doing to try to promote athletics outside of the school day, because I think that will really help with the tests as well. And if, you know, and I know it's difficult. I mean, I know it's difficult to get parents to try to get their kids active, but I just, it's one of these things where I'm not sure if what PE we offer them is truly enough, right? And what might we be able to do to try to promote activities outside of the school day?
Right.
So one of the expansion comments from Aubrey this evening was making sure that our students, at least 6th through 8th grade, have access to Boys and Girls Club activities after school, should they choose to go, regardless if they're IBL students or Cabrillo or Valamar or Ocean Shore. They all should be able to have access to it, and that's one of the things that we try to make sure that, you know, people have that opportunity to do that.
Sure.
I do believe Valamar has a track team now, you know, after school. So we ourselves are trying to generate that healthy living standard, but clearly we have some investigations to do, and I think at the wellness meeting, as Ray said, the PE teachers were a bit surprised. We were surprised because we feel like we've added PE teachers and PE time.
Sure.
And we're just not quite certain why that happened. So we have to do some digging.
Yeah.
And it could be, it's kind of like you said, especially like with the Filipino population in 5th grade, are we giving the test properly?
Yeah.
You know, and do we have the right materials for them? And so that's one of the things that we're going to dig into as well.
That sounds great, because if it's just a fidelity to the test issue,
Exactly.
then, you
We're
know,
not sure.
then we just have to measure it correctly. right?
Exactly.
So-
We're not sure.
And we had a deep discussion about calibrating the test too throughout the district, making sure that it's given the same way to the same grade
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
you know.
Exactly. I mean, Will, you've given some of these tests, so how defined are they?
They're pretty clear. Some of them even have tape things where it like they do the pacing test. That there's an actual tape you push and it goes, you go now, go back, you know, kind of like. So it's pretty controlled.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of subjectivity. Like if they're doing the reach test where they have to reach on the box, they'll say, oh, was they at 16 or 17 on, you know, like something, you know. So there's human error that could happen and human interpretation, a little bit of it, but it's pretty controlled. It's pretty controlled.
Kind of like me, like putting on the shoes test. It's pretty much a litmus test, because I don't get my shoes tied.
Yeah,
you know, it's pretty apparent.
And you have to keep your legs straight and knees flat, so sometimes they'll cheat a little bit and pull their knees up so they can reach farther. You know, so there's a little bit of error that could occur.
Okay.
And, you know, if a PE teacher or whoever's giving the test is not watching it closely, you know, they used to do it, my school, we used to do it, the students would do it to each other, but then the scores were not. I partner up my buddy, you got a lot higher than you probably should. So we stopped that, but, you know, so there is a little bit of chance of error on the recording piece.
Okay, this is the last question, I really promise. But if a district continually scores low on health and fitness, are there any measures that the state takes to try to refer you to action? No, okay, I just wondering. All of a sudden, Richard Simmons shows up or something.
Other than the acknowledgement that we're poorly performing, you know, in that area.
Okay. Thanks.
So can I just finish with one thing? Can we figure out the defiance key in the suspensions? Because I didn't see that at all up there, and if we have any relation to it. And also, I appreciate Jesse's observation about those numbers, and if there's any way we can go back to last year and compare this year to see how that looks. And if we can have that done by the time the new dashboard comes out, so we can observe those numbers again.
I think they'll have that on the dashboard.
But I mean at the meeting, the results, and talk about it.
Yeah, that will be in January. He can include that in January when he does his integrated services. I think it'll be, because it should go live December 1st.
And the other thing is Circle Up. Is there any way to get more of a picture of how many of our schools are actually contracting with Circle Up and some of their practices? And we haven't seen a presentation, or maybe I missed it, of what they do exactly.
So we have only one school that contracts with Circle Up, and that's IBL, and they're in year 3 of their professional development.
And that'll be part of your integrated services in January,
Yeah.
so.
And then we have other schools that are using other presenters. For example, San Mateo County Office of Ed has a person now that we can tap into for free, which is great. And 2 of our schools have already lined her up for after the winter break to present to specific
Which two
grade
is
levels. Ortega and Ocean Shore. For restorative practices, the presenter is Bettina Graff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
More to come.
And then one, because you pointed it out, Laverne, on this slide, there could have been suspensions for defiance of authority, but they weren't in the highest ranking categories. So if you don't see it up there, that means that there was little to no suspensions for defiance, for that specific suspendable category. We just put up the top 4. Okay?
Ray, has the balance from out-of-school suspensions and in-house suspensions been changing over time?
Yes.
And
We're
there's
starting
reductions in the, yeah, okay.
Starting to see more of an increase of in-house
Great,
versus out of school.
thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'll be back in
Thank you.
January.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, 11E, approval of resolution number 2017-11-15-A, resolution for establishing Fund 20 Special Reserve Fund for post-employment benefit. LCAP goal operations. Josie.
Thank you. So tonight, we're asking the board to approve this resolution, which would open a new fund and transfer the funds that we have for our retiree benefits from Fund 71 to Fund 20. So historically, we've been paying the bills for retiree benefits out of Fund 71 for record keeping and transferring LCFF unrestricted dollars to do that. We have not set up any kind of fiduciary trust. You can set up a trust and have like an outside investor and invest the funds, but we don't have a lot of funds. We basically do a pay-as-you-go where we pay the year's cost for retiree benefits and keep a balance in the fund for cash flow purposes. And so we keep the funds in the county treasurer. And so several years ago, the CDE changed Fund 71 to be called a revocable trust fund, where if you put the funds there, you should have like a trust agreement and you should be investing the funds in an outside entity, not the county treasurer. So this year when the county was reviewing our audit report and our year-end actuals, they suggested that we now establish Fund 20, which is the correct fund for the type of accounting that we're doing, and move the funds from the old Fund 71 to Fund 20. And our auditors have been properly reflecting these amounts in the audit report as really general fund dollars and set aside for retiree benefits. So they've been accounting for it properly in our year-end audited report, but we just haven't established the fund. So this is basically a bookkeeping thing to move the funds to Fund 20 and close Fund 71.
But do you have to invest Fund 20 then?
Fund 20, no. It would
Okay,
be
so it'll still be sitting,
It'll be in the county treasurer. And you can move the funds between Fund 20 and Fund 1
okay.
anytime you wish. If you were to keep it in Fund 71 and establish a trust,
Oh, then
it's
you would-
irrevocable. So once you put the funds there, you would not be able to move them back and forth. And so it's really meant if you're going to follow the actuary report and build up the retiree benefit fund to the 10 million that is suggested, then you might want to consider a trust account and investing and all that, but we don't have those kind of funds at this time. So does that make sense? It's really moving it from one fund to the correct fund in the CDEs. The CDE says that Fund 20 is the correct fund based on the kind of accounting that we're doing.
And it's more flexible.
it's very flexible. You can move it back and forth anytime.
Any questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2017-11-15-A?
A motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, 11F, certification of first interim report for 2017 to 2018. Josie again?
Okay, tonight we have our first interim report, which includes all of our funds and all of the supplemental forms that we submit to the County Office of Ed. It's all posted on our website. I just prepared a short PowerPoint as a summary of what's included in the first interim. The first interim is more accurate than what the board saw in June as our adopted budget, because it does include the actual revenues from the final state budget and all of our expenditures based on our actual salaries and positions, because now our staffing is complete. So this first slide is really a summary of what was in the 2017-18 budget from June. And the only difference from what we had put in our adopted budget to our first interim is the one-time mandated funding. And you'll see in another slide we list the adjustments. But this is really the same as what we had adopted in June. Then again is the pie chart that you've seen many times. This has been updated with the first interim numbers. And just most importantly, you can see the red boxes are the state LCFF funding is just under 80% of our budget for revenues. And then our expenditures, a pie chart breaks down the different expenditures based on our general fund, and you can see that staffing is over 80% of the budget. So here's a summary of the adjustments that we made in first interim from when we had adopted the budget in June. The mandated revenues, we included those one-time expenditures that the governor said are for discretionary funds for any purpose. And then we've pretty much gone over this at I think it was one of our last study sessions. We had adjustments in special education, a lot of increases based on services for students coming into the district or changing classes. We've also had some contracted services. As we did our final staffing, we were unable to fill the positions for psychologists and speech. We actually just received another resignation of a psychologist recently. So when you have an employee versus a contracted agency, the agencies are much more costly. So we had to increase our budget by $50,000 for psychology services, and speech was $35,000 because we had a speech pathologist last year that left the district and we had to contract out. And then a couple of our students are moving to the county class based on the students' need, and we do have an increase in non-public school based on students being placed there. We do have a credit for special education because as we take students from other districts and we serve them in our district, we bill the other districts. And then the GEO bond, we've talked about that. We have election costs and consulting costs in relation to the GEO bond. So multi-year assumptions, we use the CDE FICMAT calculator for the revenues, and we use school services projections for the 3 years going out. And the state funding is still insufficient to cover our ongoing increases, based on their current projections. Our retirement costs for both STRS and PERS are increasing at a higher rate than the funding we're receiving in our health benefits, and also step and column. Our employees do move up on the salary schedule each year based on their years of service, and for teachers, if they have more units, then they move across the salary schedule. So those are the increases. We continue to be deficit spending for 3 years, and this report builds in budget reductions for year 2 and 3 in order to maintain our 3% reserve, and I'll show you the multi-year, but we have projected $260,000 of budget cuts for next year with an additional $50,000. And this is what we have in this report. If we were to make budget reductions in this year or more in year 2, of course that it lessens the impact going out. So here's the summary of the multi-year with those budget reductions built in to the multi-year. So in 16-17, you can see we had 9% reserve And then as we moved into 17-18, we're spending $900,000 more in expenditures than what we're receiving in 17-18. That's not reflected in 18-19 and 19-20 because in 18-19 and 19-20, it includes budget reductions and it also includes transferring monies from Fund 17. So if you look here at Fund 17, there's $732,000. It drops to $400,000. That $300,000 is up here, making it look like the deficit's going down. But you're really just using reserves to cover that deficit for these 2 years. So this is not a balanced budget in this year because you have used all the rest of the Fund 17. And that's how we have to demonstrate it when we submit to the county in the general fund ending with the 3%. So basically we're transferring the money from our reserve Fund 17 to the general fund to maintain 3%. And this is based on the current budget, you know, for the governor's 18-19 and 19-20. In January, if the COLA comes out higher or, you know, any of those factors change, then we would update this at second interim. But right now, this is the best information we have at the time, and so we have built in the budget reductions into this multi-year. And it also includes declining enrollment, which we know we lost 56 students, you know, 35 students, and then we're projecting to lose another 30 based on, you know, the 8th graders graduating and the kindergarten class coming in, so.
But you're assuming it bottoms out there because in 1920 you're not assuming any further.
It's really difficult to do it the third year out as far as revenues and expenditures, and we really need to look at that more closely when we get to second interim. And
Just saying it could be.
It could be 30, another minus 30.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the trend that we're seeing. We don't have any data that shows that we're going to be increasing or stabilizing, so that is something that, you know, you can see a big blank there, and we need to look at that. So that's the current summary. Our current considerations, we had discussed this also, is, you know, if we can do some cost savings this year, it really helps, because if you save money in the current fiscal year, let's say $50,000, it's going to count twice because it's going to count for another $50,000 next year, and so that really helps with budget reductions in the following year. So we have some vacant positions, and right now we're looking at, you know, possibly holding off on filling these positions. The lead technology technician is a difficult one because we have purchased all of our technology. We have a very robust technology plan, and so, you know, that is a very important position for our district. The behaviorist program, we're looking at our caseload, and we feel like we can hold off on filling that position and still meet the needs of the students. Purchasing technology is another area where, you know, if we can hold off on things, we can save. And then capital projects. We had somewhat based on safety, we had looked at the district office reception area and how people enter and how can we redesign that. And, you know, based on the current budget, we're looking at maybe doing a smaller scaled back version of the plan. So we haven't brought any contracts to the board at this time because we're just kind of reevaluating that project. And then replacing aging furniture, unless something's really broken, we're not purchasing furniture right now for the school sites. So those are just some current considerations, and we'll continue to review it and add if we can. But we are presenting to you tonight a positive certification, which you'll meet the needs for the current year and two years out, and end in June with a positive cash flow. There are 2 documents that the board has in the packet to sign tonight. One is the positive certification, and you can see all of the fiscal indicators on that form. And then there's a second form that the county requires that acknowledges that we are including budget reductions in the first interim report. So just moving forward, here's a list of the key budget dates going forward for the board. And that's it. I mean, the package is here if you have questions, comments. It's all the whole packet is included, but I wanted to try to make it short for you.
Any questions? Okay, we do have a request to address the board regarding this from Sue Beckmeyer.
Hello, again. So with regard to our projected shortfalls and the strategies that we're considering for making up for those shortfalls, I do want to underscore the fact that the two positions that are listed as remaining vacant and the consideration of holding those positions vacant do both fall within CSEA. And we would hope that there can be some pencil sharpening and some very hard looking at keeping those cuts away from people as much as possible. That said, there are other needs and considerations that also fall within our unit. And so we understand and appreciate the board's challenge in weighing out these competing priorities. So I just wanted to state that we're cognizant of the challenges and we're hopeful that there will be some savings somewhere that we're not seeing it just yet, so that we can move forward. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the certification of the first interim report? Second? Okay. All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay. 11G, CSBA Delegate Assembly nominations. Wendy?
So I bring this forward to you to give you information and to see if there is interest in moving a nominee forward, if anybody was interested. If so, we would need to have a board item probably for December, because the nomination forms and information needs to be presented to CSBA by January 7th, which is before our next board meeting in the new year. So I want to just open it up for discussion to see if there is interest in us moving forward on sending in a nominee.
I'm just curious, since one of our board members is missing, or not missing, but
Not here.
not here tonight, is that something we should let her?
Was that the position she was interested in last board?
No,
Okay.
I think that one was,
Which I forgot to report out on.
oh, yeah, yeah, but, no, I don't think that was, that one's more local. This one you will need to go to Sacramento, a few times, etc. She hasn't, she didn't share that she had a change from last year, so I don't know. One of the things that what I could potentially do is determine if there's interest. If there's interest, we can have a conversation at the next board meeting. If not, I won't bring it forward. Does that? Because I'm understanding there's no interest of any of these members present. Okay?
Yes. Okay. You can ask Kathy offline, okay? All right. Board bylaws, board policies, and administrative regulations, okay. Okay, for BPAR 6153, school-sponsored trips, first reading, Will?
Yeah, so this is I bring this forth as first reading. This is a policy that's a bit dated, a policy and an administrative resolution that's dated, and it's with regards to school-sponsored trips. And The policy, the present policy states that the ratio of certificated staff members to students shall be 1 to 20 in grades K through 3rd and 1 to 35 in grades 4th through 5th. And as you know, our class sizes now are at 24 to 1. So this simply is just to switch that board policy to reflect language that that would mean that would switch it to 1 to 24 in K3, and in it would still be 1 to 35 in 4A. So that's the one edit of this project. So it was presented for review with revisions at the December 6th board meeting. We'll look for consent on this item. Any questions about? Seems to be pretty straightforward.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, 12B, October 2017 manual maintenance. Should we just just go through them and see if anyone has, if you have questions, just speak up. For the first reading, attachment A. Oh, that's, okay. Where are they?
Attachment B.
Okay, so attachment B is the CSBA sample B 0400 comprehensive plans. Okay, attachment C, CSBA sample BP 0460 LCAP. Okay, attachment D, CSBA sample AR 0460 LCAP. Okay, attachment E, CSBA sample BP 0500 accountability use. Attachment F, BP 0520.0 Title I program improvement. Attachment G, AR 0520.2 Title I program improvement. Okay, attachment H, CSBA sample BP 1113 district and school websites use. Attachment I, CSBA sample AR 1113 district and school website use. Attachment J, CSBA sample BP 4140, 4240, 4340. Okay.
I do have to say, after looking at one of those, which one it was, attachment H, I went and looked at all the school websites and there were no kids that were just a single kid in a picture.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good with that one.
We're safe.
Just backs of heads.
That
so.
we're okay.
Okay, so October.
Groups of kids. So that's okay.
October 2017, manual maintenance 3000 series, first reading, Josie. Okay. Attachment B, BP 3280, sale or lease of district-owned real property. Attachment C, BP 3513.4, drug and alcohol, free schools. Okay. Attachment D, AR 3515.6, criminal background checks for contractors.
I just had a question about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just trying to visualize what that looks like, you know, when we have, like, let's say the GEO bond goes through and we have all these upgrades going on. What exactly would that one contractor who's going into Ballymar have to do?
So when we do a contract, and we're already doing this now, when you know, John hires contractors like the roof bidding and everything, part of the bid packet or part of the contract includes criminal background checks. And so the owner or the contractor has to provide evidence that their employees have gone through criminal background checks. And those are for big jobs. When you have smaller type jobs, you can require fingerprinting. And it depends, and we kind of tightened the language up a little bit based, that's why it has with revisions. like if you have an electrical person going into the school to fix the smart boards or the projectors, it depends on the contact with students, and we need to make that determination if they're gonna go in on during the summer. We don't need that, but if for some reason we need them to go in during the school day, then we're going to have, if they're gonna have direct contact with students, which typically they wouldn't, then we would have to fingerprint.
Right. And then there was just one part that was just a little confusing. It said that it needed to be done during school hours.
In emergency situations, and under that criteria, we wouldn't have, in an emergency situation, wouldn't have them fingerprinted, but whichever staff person is responsible for the job would need to be there overseeing the job.
So it's like part of the bonding that the contractors provide to show that they're bonded?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we do a bid for big jobs, there's a
Mhm.
whole packet of compliance that they
bonded,
have
okay.
to submit.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, future agenda items?
Okay, I think, one thing I wanted to point out. Is Sunset Ridge was, oh, it didn't change on this one. Or maybe it's gonna be changed on the next one. Sunset Ridge did change their open house to 3/29, which is a Thursday, and not 3/28, which is, I believe, isn't that right?
It's a board meeting.
It's a
Yeah.
board meeting,
Mhm.
so they did, we're able to change that. And then our next meeting will be our board reorganization, so and we will have a presentation from Beverly Gerard, who is a member of the San Mateo County School Boards Association. And they're going around to kind of share what they do and get input from you and all of you and suggestions. So we will probably put her first, and then we'll do the reorganization, so she doesn't have to stay through the whole thing. Not, she may want to, but.
I get people stay.
Yeah. Okay.
There's one.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned at 8:45.
Thank you.